How about that? We're live. I'm digging this. This
Yeah,
is Victorious Leadership Live. How about that?
I like
Is that
that.
coming through good? Do you hear that?
I need a glass of scotch or something.
How about that? How about that? That is Victorious Coffee. This show is brought to you by Victorious Coffee. You know I got a coffee brand, Russell. Do you know about that?
I did see that. I did hear about that. Congratulations. I'm like, wow, you're taking it to another level here, Victor.
I'm trying to. Hey, those of you that are now live with us, welcome to Victorious Leadership Live. I'm your host, Victor Simmons. And this is where we have real conversations with leaders. And to coin a phrase of my special guests, these are leaders that have either chosen hospitality or hospitality chose them. All right. And they know what it means to lead under pressure. And so normally I would read a bio. In fact, I just had Russell on a LinkedIn Live we did for another organization about a month ago or so, and I read through his. We're not doing that. I'm not reading through his thing. This is a special event, and so I am going to frame up a little bit about Russell. And then I'll give you an opportunity, Russell, to fill in any blanks, anything I missed. Um, but Russell and I, well, first of all, Russell, did you do the? I did the math just before we went on, and it made my eyes water. I got up, pulled out my phone, went to the calculator, and said, "Let's see, when was I at COD when I met Russell, or this junior college?" And I looked at that number, and my eyes watered. Do you know how many years that is that we've known each other?
It's got to be over about 44.
It can we even say that out loud? 40. I say four. I had 43 on my calculator. I'm gonna use 43. I ain't trying to take it to 44.
It's
Wow.
somewhere around there, and we're still young, Victor, and we still look good.
Wow. Yes. Yes. I hear that all the time. So okay, I will take joy in that. So Russell and I have known each other, 4 decades, over 4 decades, and started out in school and got into hospitality. Russell's actually the one that paved the way for me to get into hospitality. He was at one school, I was at a different school. I was down at San Diego State, supposed to be in school. I was also having kids at that time, trying to figure out what I'm going to do now that I got this woman pregnant. And Russell told me about this hospitality program. And I said, "Oh, I'm doing that. That's what I'm going to do." And I got into that hospitality program at Cal Poly Pomona. And we wound up reconnecting there. And then Russell was just on the go in hospitality. He was moving from this job to that job. And I was still old world thinking I'm just going to be at this one job, be there for 4 decades and get a gold watch and retire. That stuff doesn't happen, right? And so I marveled at how he moved around from job to job and continued to progress in his career. I marveled at that. And then now he's got this big hospitality radio show that he does. And I marveled at that and what he does in marketing. I'm calling him all the time. "Hey, how did you do this? How are you doing that on social media?" And so now that I'm starting my show, I just thought, for my first guest, it has to be Russell. So Russ, how you doing, man? Come on and say hello to everybody and fill in the blanks. What did I miss? You want to tell them a little bit about yourself and maybe your career progression, and then we can get into some real questions.
Well, I think you hit everything on the head. I mean, first of all, I appreciate you invite me on to be your first guest. I do, and I can say here that I'm proud of all the stuff that you've accomplished, right? And although it took maybe a while for you to understand that in order to grow, you had to leave your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And but a lot of people do that, right? A lot of people, they not necessarily afraid, but not sure if that's the right move for them. But I think that once you left the desert, I think that the whole world is your oyster kind of thing, because
Yeah.
there's a lot bigger space out there. And one thing that I learned back in the day is that the more I moved around, the more money you made, the more experience that you were able to get. And and it was not frowned upon to do that within the hospitality space, at least at that time. I'm not sure about now, but at that time, if you were not movable or mobile, you got passed over for a lot of positions. And this was Marriott. This was the big M, right? The biggest, and I think the best company out there as far as hotels concerned. And I'm so glad I started with them. Back at Cal Poly, right? That's where I met them. Met
Yeah.
the representatives because they were doing a job fair. I don't know if that's even a thing now, but back then on the quad at Cal Poly, I met Bridget Belinsky and San Veneziano. I still remember people's name. That's the
Yeah.
thing that gets me, because
Yeah.
they made impacts on my life. So, and I
Absolutely.
appreciate getting the opportunity to start off as a housekeeping manager trainee, and because that all opened the door to where I am or what I'm doing today. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Bridget and Sam, those are icons at that time. I remember those two as well, and worked with them at one point or another, or in their scope of leadership. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I worked a dozen years at one hotel before I made the move to Marriott, and then yeah, it was absolutely clear you needed to be able to make the move, and for various reasons I wasn't able to at that moment, but eventually, yes, as you saw, I was able to. So great kickoff for our first one. So you ready to take some questions? Here's a softball question. All right. I talked about it in the opener. This
question
phrase
and
that
answer.
you use, and so I'm curious. Russell asked this question of his guest: Did you choose hospitality, or hospitality chose you? I don't think I've ever asked you, as much as I've known you. So how do you respond to that? Did
No one's ever
hospitality choose you?
no one's ever asked me that question.
Yeah.
um, I chose it because I went to seek at, and it started in college, right? Because I didn't
Yeah.
know what I wanted to major in. I mean, marketing was part of it. I ended up getting a minor in marketing, which was fine because that led to some of the things I do today. But I wasn't sure. I mean, it was like operations management or just straight business management. And then I was taking classes in different majors just to see where I would fit in the most or fit in the best. And I came across this thing called HRT, which was Hotel Restaurant Travel Management. That's the name of it back then at Cal Poly. And I took a couple of classes. I still remember the professor, James McLean, um, and
Yeah.
he taught a class. The first class I took, I think it was Intro to, I don't know, food and beverage or something. And then we talked about McDonald's for like the whole quarter. The quarter is 10 weeks, right? We talked about McDonald's from when it started to the how they make their how where they got their French fries from. I mean, all these kind of things, right? I'm like, this is interesting because I had never worked for McDonald's. I had never, as a kid, a lot of people, they made their bones working at McDonald's. A lot of
Yeah.
people that were, because I had no hospitality background at all. So I was really green. I'd
Oh,
never
I didn't
worked in a
realize that.
hotel. My experience came from a catering company, but that was after I started Cal Poly. That was
Okay.
my summer job. So after I got into the major, then I found out that you needed 800 hours before you could graduate.
Yeah.
So I had to
Yeah.
and during one of those job fairs, there was a company called, I can't think of the name of it, Corporate Events. I think that's what it was called. Well, they specialize in outside catering, like for big
Mm.
companies. They did a lot of like Warner Brothers and things like that. So it was outside. So my job was, I was a beer server. I mean, like a beer tender. Okay. So we had to set up all that stuff. And that was where my experience came from. So from then, But to answer your question, yeah, that's yeah, I chose hospitality. I
Okay.
chose that path. But yeah, so it came with, and like I said, I came in green. I didn't know anything about hotels, anything like that. In fact, my only hotel experience, I mean, it came out from you, because me going to a hotel was, I think, I mean, as a kid, we went to hotels. Like I still remember the Holiday Inn in around Disneyland. I still remember as a family we went there, but that was, I think,
Mm-hmm.
my first experience and only experience. And then when when we played or went to College of the Desert together in Palm Desert, you were working at La Quinta and
Yeah.
security, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that was my first, really my first true experience at a hotel, or knew that you actually can work there. That was a
Yeah.
job that you had, and you had for you stayed there for quite some time. So you kind of inspired me. Maybe you didn't know that, but you did
Yeah.
inspire me too, because I still remember that. And country clubs and all that kind of stuff. You introduced me to those things. I don't think we want to go into our experiences at country clubs and how we used to use their jacuzzis and pools after practice. But hey, that's on you. If you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
talk about that, that's fine.
Well, I'll share one quick thing that I know made an impression on you, because you gave me a lot of ribbing at that moment, and after that time was when I took you over to the sports club that I was a member of. To the
Wise Jim.
yeah,
Oh, man.
Wise Gym. They had a snack bar there in front of the racquetball court, so we went over there to have lunch one day. And
Love
he
me.
was like, "What is this? This I've never seen a gym that's serving so you can get lunch."
Never, never.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm from Blythe. Okay, there was we weren't exposed to a lot of things that you guys were exposed. Although it's like what, an hour and a half away. It was like it was another world. It was another
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. So yeah, fun times. Hey, but here's the other question. I want to get back to hospitality choosing you, because we're going to start talking about leaders. If you had to tally it up, what would you say when you've asked that question of your guests? Was it they chose hospitality, or hospitality chose them? What would you say was the majority of responses you got?
Hospitality chose them. A lot of them, I thought about that, and a lot of them say hospitality chose them because a lot of them fell into it, meaning they needed a part time job in the summer
Yeah,
or whatever. So
yeah,
they started. I remember Natalie. She said she worked at, I can't remember the hotel, but she was like a server at the pool, like a cocktail server at the pool. That's how she started, and found out that that could lead to other positions, meaning
mm,
reservations, and then she ended up getting into revenue management from that. But her start was a cocktail server, and some people were dishwashers. I mean, I think I talked to one general manager that his first job, he was a dishwasher, and it
yeah,
just kind of led to something else. So he didn't know, or they didn't know what they were falling into, but they
yeah,
find out that there's so many things that you can do, and and it's one of the true jobs today where you can make a career from there, and you didn't necessarily have to go to college.
right, yeah,
I mean, I
absolutely,
know many general managers that are general managers that didn't go to school. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
and good general
Yeah, I
managers.
tell I tell folks that back then and even today, I say you don't have to. I still advocate for school,
Of
but
course.
sometimes it doesn't even have to be a 4-year university anymore. It could be YouTube University for that matter. Just you do have to, if you don't understand something, you got to bone up some kind of way.
Exactly.
Shout out to Natalie. How is Natalie doing? Where is she at? We should give her a shout out. Say hello.
Yes, shout out to Natalie. Natalie is fine. We text. We haven't talked maybe in a couple of weeks, but we do text. She is the director of sales and marketing at the Courtyard in Pasadena, Courtyard by Marriott, Old Town Pasadena, Old Town
Okay.
Pasadena, which is a
You
300
just
plus room property.
As for Nat, you want to send your business down to Pasadena, you need to give Natalie a call.
Exactly. Let's
Um,
give Natalie a call.
all right, let's get into some questions here.
Do we
Let's
have
let's
to?
let's yes, let's talk about your origin story. It's your origin story, Russell Edmond. So when you look back, what early experience in hospitality most shaped how you lead today? Or is it different? Is it different? Or you tell me.
I would say, okay, what molded me was my first experience, my first job, and
Okay.
that was with Marriott. So that was going through their ID training program,
Mm,
because it, some people need structure, right? Some people, because especially if you're just out of school, you don't have any hotel experience, which I didn't have. Um, so I needed that structure. I needed someone to say, or something to tell me, hey, this is the thing you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. And Marriott had a lot of SOPs, standard
yep.
operating procedures. Okay. They had a big book binder that's probably as big as this.
Hmm.
And
For everything.
anything that you can imagine was in that book.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm glad back then, and people don't have that structure now, where management companies were not a thing back then. Okay,
Mm,
so you worked for a corporation, which was Marriott, or you worked for Hilton, which was Hilton
yeah.
Corporation, right? So I'm so glad I came up in that time, because that was before management companies came in and took over. And unfortunately, the management companies forgot one thing, and that was the training part of it, because that's what
Hmm.
we're dealing with now.
Yeah.
If you really, the evolution of management companies is good for some people, but a lot of times it wasn't good for people that needed that training, or that
Yeah.
the SOP to fall back on. Because even to this day, I still use those things. People ask me questions all the time. I get people, maybe like on a consulting basis, they start asking me questions, and I refer back to a lot of things that I learned back then. And that's, if I've known you 40 years, Victor, I mean, we're going back 30 years and working, right? And when I started as a housekeeping manager trainee. And a lot of those things, those SOPs, I still remember to this day. And I still apply that when I'm talking to, someone that needs some assistance on something, or just, we're just shooting this stuff. And then I'm saying, hey, you ever thought about this? And they say, where'd you come up with that? I said, you know what? That was a SOP back in the day from Marriott. And they said, well, when did you
Absolutely.
work there? And I said, I worked there, back in the late 80s through the 90s, the early 90s. And that was it, because I needed that. A lot of people, maybe they came from another experience where they didn't need it, but I needed that structure. So it was good for me. So if you're asking what shaped me, it was that first experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as you said earlier, yeah, I started out at an independent, it was an independent hotel company, Landmark Land, then eventually became KSL while I was still with them, but then eventually went to Marriott. And I still pull this bad boy out from time to time. That's, there's a lot of miles on this bad boy. I still refer to for stuff because it was good, solid, good, solid basis and good training. So
Mhm,
absolutely, absolutely
mhm.
agree. Um, okay, from the outside, people see success, right? They see someone and go, "Oh, that looks good. That's a leader right there." But what's the pressure, the responsibility behind that people don't see, and how has that shaped you?
That, you know, can I say this, Victor?
Yes, you can say
When Victor sent me these, when Victor
it.
asked me to do this, I'm like,
He said,
I
"What is this? I
I
gotta
could
take."
never have just a regular conversation with Victor without having to do some homework, okay? Having to pull something out and like, I really got to think about this, this question or whatever. So ask the question again, Victor. I'm sorry.
Here you go. From the outside, people see success. What pressure or responsibility do they not see behind the scenes, and how has that shaped how you lead?
Uh, well, I would say the thing that you don't see within hospitality is managing people's emotions, expectations, and experiences in real time. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Just dealing with
yeah,
all that stuff behind the scenes. You're balancing, guest satisfaction, staffing challenges, budgets. ownership expectations, and you throw in that management company thing in there too. So
Yeah.
you're dealing with a lot of different moving parts, and not to mention, I didn't mention the team, the morale and things like that. Because as a manager, you got a lot going on. You're balancing, or you're juggling a lot of balls in the air,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
And do you have to be? And you think that you got to be perfect on a lot of this stuff. You got to come up with all the right answers, and a lot of times maybe you do, and I don't know if that's pressure that you're putting on yourself, but as a manager, yeah, there's some pressure there that you have to deal with, right? So,
yeah.
because you're getting pulled in all these different directions. So you're balancing guests. Oh, I already said that, but that pressure, it changed the way you lead, because you you have to consider everybody else, right? And maybe how other people react to certain things. So I'm not even sure if I answered that question,
Well,
but
I think yeah, you have, but what it brings to my mind, I remember having a conversation with you when you were at Sportsman's Lodge. You
okay,
were director of sales and marketing, but then you became the GM.
yeah,
And that's a whole nother level because yes, now you before director of sales and marketing, you do have interaction, I'm guessing here, but you do have interaction with ownership. But now as the GM, you have direct uh, um, interactions with ownership, and ownership is telling you to do this. You're also trying to tell ownership, we need money for reno, we need money for renovation, we need money for this, and you got employees, you got everything going on. Um, and so I think when you're talking about employee, you're dealing with different emotions. You're dealing with different executive committee members that are trying to protect their particular scope of work. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on there, right? That you have to be able to contend with.
yeah. And there is a big difference between being a director of sales and marketing and a general manager, because
Yeah.
as a general manager, the buck stops with you. It
Mhm.
begins and ends with you, and the decisions that you make are for everybody. Now, if you're the director of sales of a department, for the most part, it starts and ends with your team.
Yeah.
But and then being an EC member, then you have to take on more responsibility, because quite frankly, I worked in when I was there as a director of sales. I'm kind of guiding, at least one of the general managers that I worked for, because he was kind of green and inexperienced, right? And I'm guiding him, but I'm not in that role. You know what I mean? To do that, but sometimes you have to, because as the most experienced person, you if you really care about what you do and how you do it, and what's going on, you have to inject your experience in there, because
Yeah.
there'd be a lot of people who would be like hands off. You know what I mean? You know what? This is my job. My role is director of sales. I don't need to be taking over this other stuff as well, because that's not my job and I'm not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
We'll think about that, right? But
Right.
as a manager, there's nothing that has happened in a hotel that I have never experienced. At least I don't think so, right?
Yeah.
From people dying in hotels to
Yeah.
people jumping off of roofs. I mean, stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of things that you deal with that a lot of people have never dealt with before.
Yeah.
So I had to interject things to this general manager or whatever, and say, hey, these are things that you should look at. Not saying that these are things you need to do, but just consider these things, right? So yeah, so there's a lot different things, and like you said, although I was dealing with maybe ownership or the management company from the director of sales perspective, but once you get to that general manager, then you're dealing with everything, and it's a union. That property was a union property,
Oh, I
right?
didn't
So
realize that or
so
remember that.
that and that's a
Yeah.
whole
Oh yeah.
different ball of wax when you're dealing with a union property.
Yeah.
So that was something else.
That actually makes me think about something else. So when that was going on, um, and you were still director of sales and marketing, because you had been at a union property before, operating not as a GM but in a department. And did that GM that you were sort of mentoring might not have been the right word, but you were managing up and sort of helping this GM. Did that GM have union experience?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I don't believe he did.
Now, tell me not specifically about that aspect of it, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what that's like because, not to talk about my book, there'll be plenty of time for that later, but a lot about what I write about is being a leader when you don't have the necessarily the authority. And so you were an EC member, he's your boss, and I will just relate this to something that I always did as a senior HR leader. I was always working with my HR directors at the property level telling them, "Hey, you need to be able to manage your GM because sometimes GMs, y'all listening, you guys sometimes just shoot from the hip and doing things you're not supposed to be doing. And I'm telling the HRD, you need to put that in check. And it's difficult to do that when that's your boss, right? In any situation. And so you're in this situation where this is your boss, but you see some things going horribly wrong right before your very eyes. And as you were saying, I gathered from you that like you're not just going to go, well, I'm just going to stay in my lane. I need to help out. I care about this business, this industry, this property, and so I need to intercede. Tell me a little bit more about that. So, is there a situation that occurred where you did that? Tell us a little bit more about that situation.
Well, I can just say this. There's a lot of overlapping. Okay. So although as a director of sales, there's certain things you deal with, but when I mean overlapping, there's a lot of employees that aren't comfortable that they're more comfortable coming to me than they
Yeah,
were going to the general manager, right?
yeah,
So, and I'm not one of those people that's like, you know what, that's the GM, you need to go talk to him, right?
mm-hmm.
So, no, I'm not one of those people because I was approachable, and they knew me. They were more comfortable with coming to me. They didn't know a lot about the new general manager or whatever, and he was not really. Um, what am I trying to say? He wasn't as approachable as I was. So I
Okay.
took a lot of stuff on, and I would let him know these are things that are going on, and you need to handle this stuff, right? And I mean, a lot of that stuff that he didn't do, it led to his demise, meaning it led to him
Mm.
being asked to leave, and that's how I got into the role. Not that
Uh,
I was looking for it, because I was not looking for it at all. And you can ask
yeah,
anyone who I worked with. No, that was the furthest thing from my mind because I was happy being the director of sales of
yeah,
my
I remember
that
that.
hotel. So yeah, so that came out of left field I'm sure it came out of left field when I mentioned that to you that I was going to be the
Yeah, I was
GM
like,
or I am.
GM.
Yeah.
What?
So yeah, so it was one of those situations where, like I said, he was not as approachable as he should have been, and he didn't have the experience and it didn't have the confidence to do it either. I had the confidence to have a conversation with him and let him know this is what's going on. Hey, this is what's going on. You may need to spend some more time with this department and this person or whatever, because within the union structure, there's always a union representative, right?
Yeah,
Always a union representative. And then that person, if you're not taking care of that person, or at least listening to what they have to say, they're going to bring in a union rep from the outside. And that's
yeah,
the last thing you want, right?
yeah,
But at the end of the day, if it wasn't in the agreement, the union agreement, then it can't happen. And
absolutely
that's
right.
the thing. That's the thing that we get so caught up in. All the union is they're filing a grievance and they're doing this and they get all out of sorts, right? I'm like, dude, is it in the agreement? Let's open it up and let's
Okay.
look at the agreement. If it's
Yeah,
not in the agreement, it cannot happen. Okay. In 5 years or whatever years, when they want to renegotiate it, then they need to put that down
exactly,
as we're going to
exactly.
renegotiate that, right?
Yeah,
But that's the thing, because what happened was a lot of times they'll talk, well, former practice, like something that a previous general manager allowed them to do. And they say, well, that was a former practice that the previous GM allowed happen. I said, I'm not concerned, or he shouldn't be concerned about what happened before. He should be concerned about what's in the agreement. And that's what I told him. And he was kind of hesitant to do it because I think he was afraid of the outcome of what they're going to do or whatever. And I'm like, dude, I mean, because someone told me this, a general manager that I worked with, he told me because he was never stressed. And you learn a lot from other people, from previous people, right? People that you
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And it was Joe Tatizian, and he's a VP of Aimbridge now, one of the VPs. So he would tell me, he said, man, don't get stressed out about the union stuff, right? He said, because it's all about the contract. Is it in the contract? And that was it. He kept it as black and white as that. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to look at it, because people will get all,
Right.
foaming at the mouth and all this kind of stuff. And I just remember what Joe told me. And I was telling the guy the same thing, but he didn't want to listen. And that's it. And maybe because he was the general manager and I was not. And I said, that's fine, whatever. But I'm letting you know this is what, because I don't want the ship sinking and I'm on that ship too.
Yeah.
Because we all sink. If one person sink, we all gonna sink at least to a certain point. And but that led to his demise, which is unfortunate.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Hey, check, because I know you are better at this. You might want to look over on YouTube and see if anybody's had any questions. And I'm going
I
to
see
look.
comments right here. I see Sam Jackson. I remember Victor. We played COD together. I see hi Victor, but this is from my sister. Hi Victor and brother.
I do see that. I didn't know if that was that. I think that's coming from Facebook. Both those from Marsha.
But they all should come. Everything should come to here. Everything should come here.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I see Chito Levis. He's from Blythe.
Do you know Valerie? I don't recognize that name. Do you know Valerie?
Yeah. They're from Blythe.
Oh, okay.
They're from Blythe.
Oh, okay.
It's all about the contract. Yes, union all day. Yes, you're absolutely right. So thank you.
Okay, so if it's on YouTube, it comes here. If it's on and I see
it should pop up. Yeah, if someone making comments, it should pop up there as well.
All right. And I think we're on LinkedIn as well. So please drop if you have any questions. This is the point where I would say if you got any questions, drop them here. Let's move on. This is a good one. I can't wait to hear what this I can't wait to get the answer on this one. So tell me about a moment early in your career where you got it wrong as a leader, and what did that teach you? Where'd you screw up, Russ? This is Victoria's leadership unfiltered.
Wow. You know what? We screw up a lot. You know what I mean? We screw up a lot. We may not own up to it, but we do screw up. And I'm no different. I screwed up too. So I remember this like it was like yesterday. So it goes back to this was I'm still with Courtyard back in the day, but not my first Courtyard assignment. It was my second one. So I opened up a property in Hacienda Heights, a Courtyard by Marriott in Hacienda Heights, and as a housekeeping manager. So if you do a good job at your property, you're able to open up a new property, and I did, right? So and everything went well. And then at that point, I was at the end of my my housekeeping responsibilities, right? So I was transitioning into being a front office manager. Okay, so I was being trained and all that kind of stuff. Although I still had the housekeeping, I was transitioning to be a front desk manager, right? Because within the disciplines of the Courtyard back in the day, you had to do, in order to be a general manager, if that's the path you wanted to go on, you had to complete housekeeping, front desk, and food and beverage. Those are things you had to get under your belt in order for you to be eligible to become a general manager. So, okay, so I did the housekeeping and I was transitioning, or, I think the point that I made this big mistake, I was the front desk manager. Okay. So this was the situation. A guest, and I don't remember the whole situation. A guest comes to the front desk and he's unhappy about something. Okay. And he was going off on me. Okay. Basically. And instead of just taking it, and saying, what can I do to make things better? I went back off on him. Okay?
Oh, you could take Russ out of Blythe, but Blythe wasn't that. You didn't come out of Russ.
I gave him everything he gave me and more. And
Wow.
this is the thing, though. I mean, and I don't, like I said, I don't even remember what it was about, but it was something probably so minimal, it probably didn't even
Yeah.
matter, right?
Yeah.
But because he was trying to get over on us, right? He was trying to get
Mhm.
over on the hotel. He wanted, he's probably complaining about maybe, something, and he wanted a free room or what, something like that. It was probably something
Mm.
as minimal as that, right? And what I didn't, I was so into the zone, right, that I forgot that there was other people around me. People I was training, a
Mm.
new trainee, someone who came from Cal Poly, who was referred to somebody to me because someone that I knew at Cal Poly said, "Hey, I know you're at the property. I know you went to Cal Poly. Hey, I'm gonna send over someone that's interested in the job there to work at the front desk." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, bring him over." Blah blah blah. So I hired this person, and I was supposed to be training her. And I'm going off on this guest, and I, like I said, it's just tunnel vision. It's just me and this guy going back
Mm.
and forth, and I'm forgetting that to my left is this young lady that I'm training. So after I said, got the final word, because I wasn't going to let this guy get away without me getting the final word, he went back to his room. She's right next to me, and she says, "Wow, is that how we deal with the guest?" And I was like, I got about that small
Wow.
because I had to apologize to her. I said, "No, that is not how you're supposed to do it." I apologized up and down. I said, "No, that's not how you're supposed to do it." Bottom line, and I had to realize that what he really wanted probably wasn't unreasonable. It's just how he came at me, right? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And,
Hmm.
and I knew he was trying to get over, but a lot of guests do. A lot of guests
Yeah.
do. They try to get over, and that's okay. And probably all he wanted was a free room because he probably did have some issues. So I
Hmm.
ended up calling that guy and said, "Hey, I apologize, and I will grant you whatever it was he was asking for." I gave it to him
You did.
because at that point it's a training thing, and I had to eat crow or whatever the heck it is, humble myself. But that's what I did. It never happened again, but that was the defining moment of me because that puts you at a crossroad. Like if you can't deal with that, you can't deal with this job. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
I've been in housekeeping now probably going on 3 years. But one thing about housekeeping in front office, housekeeping is behind the scenes. Front desk, everything comes to you. Yeah, that's the central nervous system of the hotel for front desk, right? Everybody is
Yeah.
coming to you to ask, no matter where the issue happened, they come to the front desk to complain, right? So if I
Yeah.
can't handle that situation, I couldn't handle anything else. I needed to get out of freaking hospitality
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I'm going off on people, right? So yeah, that was the defining moment of my career, and that was early on. And I'm like, no, I this can never happen again, or I cannot work. And it never got to like my boss or anything like that because I kind of squelched the whole thing with with the person I was training. But I like I said, I apologized up and down for that, and I said
Yeah.
that was the worst experience of my
And you
life.
talk, and you immediately got when you realized that you went to the guest and squashed it with the
Yeah,
guest too. That's
yes,
another pivotal moment because you had let that fester, then you
yes.
would be talking with your superiors about that situation.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, so
Um,
that was
that makes me think of something else that I did not send you in advance, but I know you will be able to handle it
oh my
because
god.
I can tell, I know for a fact that you light up when you talk about your time in housekeeping. You did on this, on this session. And I caught something that you did on LinkedIn earlier today where you were asking about the GM and the housekeeper. And so my question to you is tell our listeners, I'm curious to know why you asked that question. And did you get any engagement on that? Did anybody respond to that? Because I'm curious to know what responses you were getting. Because I
Yeah,
think that's a bit of a
I saw
conundrum. So
one.
tell our listeners about that.
Well, I posed the question. Every now and then I can't sleep at night. Well, I don't sleep that well anyway, and I'm
Mm.
always thinking of things that make to visibility is key when it comes to things that I do, and I think you could attest to that as well,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So, in order for me to put my brand out there, let people know who I am.
Oh, we lost Russell. Let's see what. Am I able to? Where is he at? Here he comes.
What did you do?
I'm sitting here deep and want to know this answer. I didn't do anything. That's
I,
your Wi-Fi, brother.
you know what? I don't even know, but let's see. Hold on, let me forward
Are
this.
you on the Restream Premium account or not? No,
Yes, I am. I
I don't
pay
know
for
what
my
it is.
restream. So I asked the question. Like I said, sometimes I don't sleep at night. So this morning at like 3 in the morning, I'm I'm right. I'm putting notes to myself. Like, what's more important, a general manager or someone in housekeeping, a housekeeper? That was the question that I posed. So I was thinking about that this morning. I typed a note to myself this morning. So when I woke up finally, I remembered that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this morning I did a quick little video. I don't know if it's 30 seconds. And I said, I have a question for everyone. Basically, who's more important? The general manager of a hotel or a housekeeping manager at a hotel? And I said, well, let me rephrase that. Who has
Yeah.
more impact on a hotel, one or the other? And a couple people have responded, but I remember one, and the person said the general manager because they set the culture for the most part of that hotel. And I said that's great, right? But you have to wait till tomorrow for me to tell you my take on it because and what happened, it was something I was remembering from my first experience, right? I don't know why I remember certain things about
Mm.
conversation that I had when I first started in housekeeping, but I remember, and I'll just give you this little bit of it. um it was a conversation that I happened to be in, and I had just finished my training, so now I'm a full-fledged housekeeping manager, right? So,
Mm.
and it happened to be our regional director, his name was Rich Lucas, and then my general manager, who was Patricia Del Bennett. Patricia Del Benny, that was her name, right? So it was the three of us in her office, and I remember her saying, hey, I didn't let you know, but tomorrow I am I'm going. I have say a doctor's appointment. I have a doctor's appointment, so
Mm.
I'm not going to make it in tomorrow. And I remember his reaction. He was like, "Okay," and that was it. And she came unhinged because like she thought her role was so important that she had to be there, and that an act of God had to happen to come
Mm.
in and replace her or whatever. But he was so nonchalant about it. But there was more to the story, and he explained why it was not a big deal for her to miss tomorrow. Okay,
Ah,
but I will let you know tomorrow what
okay.
exactly transpired.
All right. I, we could do a whole nother segment on that. I have some thoughts about that, but I'm gonna wait till tomorrow. And
Okay.
so you all listening in, make sure you go on to LinkedIn and hear this response. Are you
Yeah,
doing
because
that?
it,
So
it,
that
it, it set things, it gave me a different perspective. From that day on, it gave me a different perspective of of the entire hotel, how the hotel operates,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and how, we have a greater responsibility to certain departments. And like I said, I'm just giving you bits and pieces. I'm kind of circling around the conversation that I overheard, and I didn't say anything. I was just like on a fly on the wall, and it was
Mm,
just, and that, like I said, that the thing that he said, that was 30 years ago, and I still
yeah.
remember it like it was yesterday.
Okay.
I
All right.
still remember it.
I'm looking
So
forward to that. Shout out to and I say this as an HR director, every hotel I've been in, or when I became a VP and was traveling, I always say it's the hardest working department and my favorite department for a variety of reasons. Just the hardest working
Yeah.
department. I'll say one other thing, then we let's move on to another question. I remember I was at the Rancho Las Palmas Marriott, and you will probably recall, at least in the desert, the biggest fundraising effort, philanthropy effort, was with Big Brothers Big. No, not Big Brothers Big. With oh gosh, who was the organization? We were raising money for this all of the time for this organization. Not Big Brothers. It was not Goodwill. Who the heck was it? Big in the desert. Um, United Way. And
Okay.
so we're raising money for United Way through payroll deductions.
Mm, mm,
And we were doing contests for the departments that were per capita giving the most, right? And we had, this was a full resort, right? So we had spa therapists making tons of money. We had leadership making tons of money, and then your frontline staff. But you know what department per capita gave the most at this
absolutely.
particular hotel? It was housekeeping. Every year was just
Mm,
coming through for
mm,
this, raising thousands and thousands of dollars. And that always stuck with me. Just the hardest working,
yes.
not all, and rarely making the highest wage out of your frontline staff, usually on the lower end, but they were given the most. So
Yeah,
I've
before
always,
you move on, I want to echo that. Yeah, I think, yeah, working in housekeeping, I learned so much. I think that set the tone for me as well. Because if I started in another department, I don't think I would have experienced the things that I experienced. I mean, the language that I happened to learn, and it was Spanish, it helped me with that.
yeah,
Um, and different cultures coming together, and not to mention the hard work that they put in, and not being noticed, and all that stuff, right? Not being noticed, not being respected. And I was a champion, and I'm still a champion for that department. When it comes to what is it, International Hospitality Day, I always make sure I do something or I post something about that, because I
yeah,
think it's important, and we sometimes forget that, yeah, they are the heart of the hotel, and we
yeah,
forget that. So
yeah.
there you go.
All right.
Oh, here's some
Donna
comments.
says,
Here's some comments too. Hold on,
Donna
hold on.
says hello. And then she says the leadership sets the tone. If the GM is a good one, they will have the support of housekeeping personnel. Absolutely. If the leadership respects the employee, there shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. Yeah.
There you
Great.
go. D Roos. That's D Roos.
All right. And D Roos is still in the industry. And what does D
No, I
Roos
believe she
do?
retired, but she
Oh,
was my sales manager. She was my
ah,
sales manager at the Sportsman Lodge Hotel.
oh, okay. Speaking of Sportsman's Lodge. All right.
Yes.
Let's see. Moving on. Let's talk about what actually works. So we kind of touched on this a little bit. When things get hard, ownership pressure. We talked about that, staffing issues. And then you got, just thinking about today, with all the real world chaos that's going on. But when you had a group of people reporting into you, thinking about those moments, what's one leadership practice or mindset that you consistently that helps you actually be better? What do you use? What's your thing?
I don't know if it's a thing, but you got to be calm, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on. There's stuff that will get messy, and there's people that will be messy.
Mm,
That will add things to a situation where it doesn't need any more crap. Okay,
yeah,
but you got to be the one that's the calmest person in the room. Okay, because especially if you're in a leadership position, because not even if you consider yourself a leader, everyone does not lead. Everyone does not know how to lead. Okay. I've been in situations where general managers that, we're supposed to respect the GM and this and that. And he's coming unglued, in front of everybody, in front of the
yeah,
guests, in front of my clients, and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, I can share one situation. I don't have a problem with sharing this. Let me just share
yeah.
this one situation.
Okay.
Um, and oh my God, I was livid. Now, as a director of sales and marketing. In fact, this was my last job that I had on property. Okay, so
Okay, let's dig
let
in.
me
Let's talk about it.
let me say that. But it was a situation where there's group that's coming in. Okay, there's a situation where there's a group that's been booked in our hotel, and another situation where the hotel's under a renovation. Okay,
Mhm.
so the contract was signed by this group, knowing that we were going to be at the end of our renovation. Maybe it was supposed to be done by that time, right? So when they were in the hotel, before they signed the contract, they saw that there was a renovation going on, but we assured them that the renovation was going to be over before they got there. So let's just say it was 13, 14 months out. Okay. So
Mhm.
renovate, oh yeah, renovation, it'd be done like 3 months before that. Now we all know, everybody that's
Mhm.
worked in a hotel or anyone that's had any major construction done to their house, their hotel, or whatever, they never go according to plan. Okay.
Oh, always.
Never. Okay.
Yeah.
So as this is progressing, now we're at maybe 9 months out. There's still a lot going on, but the group or the powers that be with this group are coming in because they want to see. They're asking questions. They're meeting with the convention services person, but they're seeing what's going on too, right? They want to make sure that they have eyes on the progress or lack of progress at this hotel. That they're going to have this major conference. Their annual conference is going to be at our hotel. So they're seeing it and they're asking me questions, right? Like, hey, are you sure that this is going to be done? Oh, yeah, it's going to be done. Like I said, we're 9 months out. It's going to be done, right? 6 months out, same thing, right? It's going to be done. Yeah, yeah, it's going to be done. Yeah, yeah. General manager saying the same thing. Remember, I'm the director of sales. I'm not the
Yeah.
end all be all. I'm the director of sales. So I'm going off of what they're telling me at this point, right?
Yeah.
So, oh, yeah, it's going to be done. It's going to be done. Now we're like 90 days out. And now the general manager, I said, hey, you need to kind of be in these conversations, right? So I have him in these conversations, and he's assuring that, oh, everything's going to be fine. It's going to be a beautiful product. You're going to have a great meeting or what convention conference or whatever. Well, now we're 3 weeks out, and you can tell it's no way it's going to be done. Okay, and okay, so now we're at that day and it's not, it did no. And now the construction is one thing, but the elevators are something else. So we have 3 elevators, and for whatever reason, 2 of them are out. I don't even remember the situation,
Oh.
right? So, and then the problem is not just going to their guest room. Their opening reception is at the top. And I want to say it's 18 floors at this hotel. It's at the top, right? So now you got to get 300 people up to up to the top. I can't remember the room, but up to the top floor, at a certain time. And there's only one elevator working. Okay, there's only one elevator working. So we're having to commandeer some of the service elevators that are around the corner behind the door over here.
Yeah.
That normally our
Walking
housekeepers
guests
use,
through
right?
part of the house. Wow.
Exactly. So it became a disaster. Okay, it was the worst experience for that group, right, and for us as well. But the group, it was their annual conference. So okay, so after all this is done, you know, um, every day somebody's coming to me saying, "Hey, this is going on, this happened, whatever." And what I told her, I said, tally up everything. Just make sure you keep a list of everything, and you present what you think you're owed. Because at that point, there's no way we would even argue or debate that there's an issue here and that they're due some type of compensation for it
Yeah. Yeah.
or a rebate or something like that, right? So I'm
Right.
telling her, I've said, hey, at this point, just tally everything up, and whatever you think is that amount, we present it to the general manager, and I'm sure he will just basically say, yep, you're right. Okay, I set the table. Okay, so
Woo.
we go after this is over. We meet with the general manager. Okay, he go well, just like I said, I went off on that guest. Remember when my
Yeah.
experience as a front desk manager.
Yeah.
He went off on this client saying that she was wrong and you set us up for this and you knew that we weren't going to be ready. And I'm like, I'm looking at him and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I was so livid. He went off on this client when she should have been going off on us, right?
Yeah.
I said, and when she finally got herself together, she left. She's like, you know what? This is what we want, and I'm leaving. Basically, what she did. I sat down. I didn't get up. I said she left, closed the door, and he's sitting across from me, and he's like justifying what he just said to this lady. I said, and I can't tell you exactly what I said on this because I try to keep things respectful. But he he said, "Can you basically can you believe her coming up with this list and all this and that and asking for compensation and I said, are you effing kidding me? I said, you have to be out of your freaking mind for us not to give her what she asked for. I said, we were at fault. We are been painting this picture for damn near a year about, this is going to be this perfect thing. Well, guess what? This is their annual conference. She has people to answer to as well. And part of this, I told her to write down this list. I said, you damn right I told her that. I said, because that's only fair. I said, we've dropped the ball. There's no way of excusing us at all for anything that happened. We screwed up. We dropped the ball. We need to compensate them. And he just went off on me for a minute. I said, now, wait a minute. Now, you may go off on the client, but you're not going to go off on me like this. So bottom line, that was one of those. I had to be calm. He was out of control, but I had to be calm at that situation because at that point I'm working for the client. I'm no longer I'm not even considering myself being a part of this team anymore because it was just out of character for a general manager to be like that. At least what I thought a general manager should be, right?
Yeah.
You listen to everything, and if it's indeed our fault, and we didn't have to do any research to know this because we were getting reports every single day what was going wrong, right? But this comes back to a situation where someone that's a general manager, someone's in a leadership position that should never have been there, never should have been there. Okay, so and that kind of set the table for a tone that I didn't want to be a part of anymore. And I think I left shortly after that because it was ridiculous. It was that was way over the top.
Wow. So that leads me to believe because we're 2 minutes for being an hour. I thought I knew we would go over, but I thought we were going to have more time because I have so many more questions. But I guess we got to wrap up. Here's the thing, though. It sounds like you left shortly thereafter because in the end, that still was not resolved to your satisfaction. Is that the right assumption?
There are some other things that kind of transpired after that, but that set the tone. And
but your client did not get what she asked for based on.
No, they ended up dead. Yeah, they did because at that point there were so many complaints coming on, and I think their CEO got involved.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't have a choice.
But it was a rough road to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, shoot, Russell. As I have been on your show a couple of times, it's obvious we're going to have to bring you back, and I know that I'm going to be coming on yours soon. So we'll have to take up more of that conversation when the time comes. I hope that this was helpful for those that were listening in today or that are now listening to the recording, and that this is something that you can take and put into your toolkit to use later with your folks that you are leading. And so, Russell, I cannot thank you enough for my first one. Thanks for being here. Thanks everybody for being online with us. Your girl Donna says she loved working with you. So
thank you, D. Roos.
We will end the stream with that, and then just hang on with me a couple more minutes, Russ, before I let you go. But I'm going to end the stream now. Thanks, everybody.